Good evening. Thanks for joining us. You're watching News at 10 with me, Muhammad Amin Carlos. Well, Malaysia's poverty line index, PLI, has increased by a whopping 5 percentage points to 5.6% of 405,441 households from 0.4%, or 24,700 households in 2016 after the government revised its PLI calculation methodology. A minister in the Prime Minister's Department, Dato Sri Mustafa Mohamad, in a statement today said that the current national PLI is 2,208 ringgit a month per household, which has increased by more than double from its previous PLI in 2016, which stood at 980 ringgit per household. Dato Sri Mustafa explained that the methodology to calculate the PLI was last updated in 2005, and the PLI for 2016 had used the 2005 methodology. Well, he said based on the new PLI, the poverty rate stands at 5.6%, which is 405,441 households in 2019. He added that if PLI 2019 was used to calculate the poverty rate in 2016, it would have stood at 7.6%, which is 525,743 households. This means if the latest PLI calculation methodology was used, the poverty rate has gone down by 2 percentage points from 7.6% in 2016 to 5.6% in 2019. The minister added that this shows the poverty eradication programs conducted by the government and supported by NGOs and the private sector has borne fruit. The government has allowed family entertainment centres to resume their operations beginning from 15th July. And Senior Minister Dato Sri Ismail Sabri Yaakob said this after considering over 3,000 workforce that contributed more than $500 million ringgit for the country's national income.
Kelulusan ini melibatkan arked permainan ataupun taman funfair indoor seperti saya kata tadi, hiburan pendidikan, edutainment, gym permainan kanak-kanak, hiburan permainan berasaskan peralatan, mesin dan hiburan teknologi dan pusat karaoke keluarga. Begitu juga dengan karaoke di majlis-majlis kahwin. Kita benarkan. Majlis kahwin tak berapa meriah, rewang kerana tidak ada karaoke dan sebagainya, kita benarkan.
The senior minister said operators must ensure that standard operating procedures are practiced by their customers. Outlet operators are also required to check the body temperature of their patrons, sell tickets via online, limit the number of customers according to the size of the premises, and get them to download the My Sejahtera application. However, Dato Sri Ismail Sabri said the government have yet to allow discos, pubs and nightclubs to resume their businesses for now. Malaysia recorded 4,233,425 tourist arrivals for the first quarter of 2020, which marked a decrease of 36.8% compared to the same period in 2019. Now, the tourist expenditure for the first quarter recorded a total of 12.5 billion ringgit, a decrease of 41.5% compared to 21.4 billion ringgit registered for the same period in 2019. Per capita expenditure also showed a decline of 7.4% from 3,201.8 ringgit in 2019 to 2,964.5 ringgit this year. The average length of stay, ALOS, in the country also saw a decrease of 1.9 nights from 6.0 nights in 2019 to 4.1 nights. From January to March 2020, Malaysia received less tourists each month compared to the corresponding month of the previous year. Negative growth had been observed for tourists from every regional market, namely short-haul market, minus 37.3%, medium-haul market, minus 41.4%, and long-haul market, minus 22.5%. Malaysia is not alone in registering negative growth in the number of tourist arrivals. According to the data from the Pacific Asia Travel Association, or PATA, Malaysia's neighboring ASEAN countries also recorded a significant decline in the number of tourists, including Thailand, Singapore, Vietnam, and Indonesia. The spread of COVID-19 virus, which prompted countries to impose a ban on international travel, was cited as the cause of the severe decline. Prime Minister Tan Sri Muhyiddin Yassin said today that Malaysian ambassadors and high commissioners have an important role to play in helping the government to revive the economy post-COVID-19. Well, he said it was important for them to help boost Malaysia's trade and investment relations with other countries and attract more investors as the economic environment had become more challenging, especially in the wake of the pandemic. Commenting further, Tan Sri Muhyiddin said that he also asked the country's ambassadors and high commissioners to work hard to enhance bilateral ties which can add value to trade and investment in areas like tourism, science, education and information technology. He also said he has full confidence that all these ambassadors and high commissioners who have been appointed can discharge their duties well in service of the country. Earlier, the Premier received a 45-minute courtesy call from 4 ambassadors and 1 high commissioner who were newly appointed. They are Dato Balachandran Tharman, Ambassador to Russia, Abu Bakar Mamat, Chile, Sazali Mustafa Kamal, Turkey, Zamshari Shaharan, Qatar, and Hassan Ahmad Hashim, High Commissioner to Bangladesh. The Prime Minister congratulated them on their appointments. Malaysia Airlines Berhad MAB and Japan Airlines JAL are set to launch a joint business partnership on 25th July this year, where the 2 carriers will cooperate commercially on flights between 2 countries. Now, through this partnership, MAB and JAL will take on new challenges to further enhance convenience between Japan and Malaysia and allow customers to benefit from more flight choices. Elaborating further in a joint statement released today, both airlines said with MAB resuming flights to Japan starting July, the 2 airlines combined will offer 4 weekly services between Kuala Lumpur, Tokyo, Narita in July and August. This initiative will enable both MAB and JAL to enhance their capabilities and leverage on each other's strengths. Malaysia Airlines Group Chief Executive Officer Captain Isham Ismail said MAB is excited the partnership is finally taking off after a few months of delay due to travel restrictions between both countries. Meanwhile, JAL President Yuji Akasaka said the expanded relationship will allow both airlines to ensure the highest standards of safety and hygiene for its mutual customers' peace of mind. The Communications and Multimedia Ministry, through the Malaysian Communications and Multimedia Commission, MCMC, will be working to improve 4G broadband connectivity in Sarawak. Communications and Multimedia Minister Dato Saifuddin Abdullah said the federal government have been discussing with the state government to find the best mechanism to improve internet connection in the state.
Pertama, kita melihat bagaimana kita boleh melipat gandakan kerja-kerja MCMC di Sarawak, khususnya dalam konektiviti 4G, sebab sekarang kita punya penetration ialah lebih kurang 71% dan bagaimana kita nak capai kalau boleh, kalaupun tidak 100%, pokoknya 90 lebih peratus.
Well, Malaysia recorded 13 COVID-19 cases today, taking the total number of infections in the country to 8,696. And of the 13, 8 are imported cases, 6 Malaysians and 2 permanent residents involving individuals who were infected abroad. Health Director General Dato Dr. Nur Hisham Abdullah at the ministry's briefing in Putrajaya today said of the 5 local transmission cases, 3 were Malaysians and 2 non-citizens. He also said another 12 cases have been discharged, which means 8,511 patients, or 97.9%, have recovered from COVID-19 since the outbreak began. There are now only 64 active cases left being treated at health facilities nationwide.
Adalah dimaklumkan bahawa tiada pertambahan kes kematian berkaitan dengan COVID-19 dilaporkan pada hari ini. Justru jumlah kumulatif kes kematian COVID-19 di Malaysia adalah kekal sebanyak 121 kes bersamaan dengan 1.39% daripada jumlah keseluruhan kes.
At present, Dato Dr. Nur Hisham said that 2 COVID-19 patients are being treated in intensive care units, with both requiring ventilator support. Well, Senior Minister for Security, Dato Sri Ismail Sabri, has announced that beginning 15 July, the maximum number of participants or visitors for any religious, social and official functions will depend on the size of the event space and compliance of social distancing. Well, he said the decision was made after the special ministerial meeting on the implementation of the Movement Control Order. The MCO agreed to reconsider the 250 people capacity cap at these functions.
Jadi, katakan masjid. Masjid tidak perlu lagi 1/3. As long as ada penjarakan sosial, jumlahnya tidak kira berdasarkan keluasan masjid tersebut. Begitu juga dengan majlis perkahwinan di hotel. Kalau ballroom tu boleh memuatkan 1,000 orang. Dan dengan penjarakan sosial boleh ada sampai 800, maka 800 lah. Jadi jumlah itu berdasarkan kepada keluasan masjid, keluasan tempat premis yang berkaitan. Yang penting ada penjarakan sosial 1 meter tadi.
Well, at least 6 Al Jazeera staff were seen walking into Bukit Aman Federal Police Headquarters after being summoned to facilitate investigations into a controversial documentary recently broadcasted by the agency. Now, the 6 news agency staff is understood to comprise of at least one producer, an editor, a journalist, cameraman, and a technician. They were seen entering Bukit Aman accompanied by 7 lawyers at 8:50 a.m., coming earlier than their 10 a.m. call time, apparently to avoid media coverage. The team's lawyer, Hisham Tepo Take, told the media that his clients were cooperating fully with the police investigation and stressed that the journalists had requested many times to interview government officials without success.
So in essence, we say that we hope after investigations, police will not commence any action whatsoever after hearing the version given by Al Jazeera.
Police are investigating the case under Section 4, Subsection 1 of the Sedition Act 1948, Section 500 of the Penal Code, and Section 233 of the Communications and Multimedia Act 1998. Last week, Bukit Aman Criminal Investigation Department Director Dato Huzair Mohammed said 5 police reports had been lodged with regard to a documentary produced by Al Jazeera on how the country treats illegal immigrants during the fight against COVID-19. It concerns a 25-minute, 50-second documentary with the title Locked Up in Malaysia's Lockdown, which it claimed to be poor treatment of illegal immigrants in Malaysia during the measures enforced to combat COVID-19. Al Jazeera has strongly rejected accusations by the government that its report on the treatment of illegal immigrants during the Movement Control Order, the MCO, was inaccurate, misleading and unfair. Well, 3 Nepali restaurants were found to be operating illegally at the North Klang Business Center. And those restaurants, which akin to entertainment outlets, have become the focal point for Nepalis at the area, especially at night. Through the Obsturja raid, a team of enforcers from the Klang Municipal Council MPK found that all 3 premises also sell alcohol without license. The restaurants operate from 8 p.m. until 8 a.m. Selangor Exco for Local Government, Public Transportation and New Village Development, Ng Zihan, when met by reporters, said other offences include local citizen renting business licenses to foreigners. A premise suspected to conduct cryptocurrency, Bitcoin mining, was also ambushed. Earlier, 36 premises, including restaurants, clothing retailers and convenience and sundry shops, were inspected by the authorities today. From that amount, 11 premises were sealed and 4 compounds were issued over various events. And in our headlines today, the Kuala Lumpur High Court sentenced pathologist Colonel Dr. R. Kunasegaran and 5 men to death after finding them guilty of murdering Deputy Public Prosecutor Dato Anthony Kevin Marais, whose body was found in a barrel filled with concrete 5 years ago. Well, Judge Dato Azman Abdullah imposed the sentence on Kunasegaran, 57, moneylender S. Ravi Chandran, 49, and 4 unemployed are Dineshwaran, 28, A.K. Tinesh Kumar, 27, M. Vishnawath, 30, and S. Nimalan, 27. In the judgment, Justice Azman said he found that all 6 accused had common intentions to kill Marias. The 6 accused are charged with murdering Marias, 55, somewhere along Jalan Duta Mas Raya Sentul and Nombor 1 Jalan USJ 1 Palang 6D, Subang Jaya, at between 7 a.m. and 8 p.m. on 4th September 2015. They were ordered to enter their defense to a charge of murdering Marias on 27 November 2017 after the court found that the prosecution had succeeded in establishing a prima facie case against them. They were charged under Section 302 of the Penal Code, read together with Section 34 of the same law, which provides the mandatory death sentence upon conviction. Among those who were relieved by the sentence was Dr. Richard Marias, brother of the murdered Deputy Public Prosecutor, the DPP, and his fellow comrades present during the proceedings. Richard, when met after the proceedings, said he was happy with the decision, adding that the prosecution team had done a tremendous job in prosecuting the case. A total of 70 prosecution witnesses and 14 defense witnesses, including all the accused, took the stand to testify in the trial, which began on 6 April 2016. Well, a newborn baby was thrown out of a 13th floor apartment unit in Farlim, Georgetown, Pulau Pinang this morning. It is learned that the infant's 18-year-old mother committed the act soon after its birth. Her parents are believed to have been at home at the time of the incident. The baby's mutilated remains were discovered by residents on their way to work. Timur Laut District Police Chief ACP Sofian Santong confirmed the incident and noted that this is the second such case in Georgetown in 2 months. On 13th May, a newborn was thrown out from a 4th-floor flat at Persiaran Mayang Pasir Lima hours after birth. Miraculously, the baby girl survived when it landed on the roof of a unit below. Her 18-year-old mother and her boyfriend then were detained to assist in the investigation. U.S. sanctions on Chinese officials over abuse of Muslims. That and more coming up in our foreign segment. Well, wearing masks and gloves and being careful to observe social distancing, Singaporeans voted in a general election today as the city-state struggles to recover from the COVID-19 outbreak. Now, after a 9-day campaign that took place mostly online, as rallies were banned to cut the risk of infection, voters cast their ballots with a raft of strict safety measures in place. Polls open at 8 a.m. and close at 10 p.m. with final results expected early tomorrow. Well, voters have been given recommended time slots in which to cast ballots, with senior citizens the first to head to the ballot box in the morning. The People's Action Party, the PAP, which has governed Singapore for 6 decades, is assured of victory but faces an opposition with some popular candidates backed by the estranged brother of the country's premier. The affluent financial hub had seen large virus outbreaks in dormitories housing low-paid foreign workers, but with new infections slowing and authorities easing a partial lockdown, the government decided to call the poll. The opposition has accused the PAP of being irresponsible, but officials insist they have done enough to ensure that 2.65 million eligible voters can cast their ballots safely. Well, one of the Philippines' largest broadcasters, ABS-CBN, has been refused a new license after being forced off air in May. Now, earlier today, an overwhelming majority of a Philippine parliamentary committee rejected ABS-CBN's request for a 25-year extension of its franchise as undeserving. Well, government critics say the broadcaster's troubles are due to its criticism of President Rodrigo Duterte. Their feud began when ABS-CBN refused to broadcast his campaign ads in 2016. The broadcaster, which operates dozens of radio and TV stations, was first taken off air on 4th May. Its broadcast license expired. Opposition lawmakers say the suspension also undermines the fight against the COVID-19 outbreak, which has infected more than 50,000 people in the country and killed more than 1,300. ABS-CBN regularly reach more than 15 million homes on TV, radio, and online. U.S.-based Freedom House says while freedom of the press is guaranteed under the Constitution, the Philippines is one of the most dangerous places in the world for journalists. Last month, Maria Ressa, the head of popular online news site Rappler, was found guilty of libel in a case seen by many as a test of media freedom. The Philippines ranks 136th out of 180 countries on the World Press Freedom Index. Well, the U.S. has announced sanctions against Chinese politicians who it says are responsible for human rights violations against Muslim minorities in Xinjiang. Well, China is accused of mass detentions, religious persecution, and forced sterilization of Uyghurs and others. The sanctions target the U.S.-connected financial interests of regional Communist Party boss Chen Quanguo and 3 other officials. China, however, denies any mistreatment of Muslims in far western Xinjiang. Authorities there are thought to have detained about 1 million people in re-education camps in recent years. Well, Chen, who sits on the Chinese Communist Party's powerful Politburo, is the highest-ranking Chinese official ever to be hit by U.S. sanctions, and he is seen as the architect of Beijing's policies against minorities and was previously in charge in Tibet. The other officials targeted are Wang Mingshan, director of the Xinjiang Public Security Bureau, Zhu Hailun, a senior party member in Xinjiang, and former security official Huo Liujun. It is now a crime in the U.S. to conduct financial transactions with all of them, and they will have their U.S. base assets frozen. However, Huo will not be subjected to visa restrictions that bar the others and their families from entering the U.S. Sanctions have also been placed in the Xinjiang Public Security Bureau as a whole. Well, sports enthusiasts can rejoice as Senior Minister Dato Sri Ismail Sabri Yaakob has announced that Malaysians will be allowed to take part in recreational sports activities from 15 July. Well, it said non-contact and individual sports competitions such as motor racing, gymnastics, diving and singles badminton competitions will also be allowed from that date. However, no spectators will be allowed to watch the games.
Aktiviti sukan dan rekreasi yang bersentuhan fizikal juga akan bermula 15 Julai 2020, iaitu sukan berpasukan termasuk bola sepak, rugby, bola keranjang, takraw dan sukan tempur seperti karate, silat, taekwondo dan sebagainya. Tapi ini tidak melibatkan kejohanan-kejohanan besar, ya. Serentak dengan situ, pengusaha-pengusaha padang komersial seperti operator gelanggang futsal, fasiliti sukan dan akademi juga dibenarkan beroperasi bermula pada 15 Julai 2020.
Dato Sri Ismail Sabri added that organization of tournaments and contests is limited to local events or tournaments alone, with no spectators and no mass gatherings of participants. Well, he said for now the government have yet to allow international events involving participants from abroad to take place. Dato Sri Ismail also said that contact sports such as football, rugby and hockey involving the National League and tournament, which was postponed since February, will resume from 15 August. The senior minister also said all SOPs will be uploaded by the National Security Council, the MKN, and the Youth and Sports Ministry in the near future for reference. Well, that concludes this evening's news at 10. In our top story, national poverty line income revised. Poverty rate stands at 5.6%. Join us again at 12:30 tomorrow afternoon. I'm Muhammad Amin Carlos, and stay tuned to Saluran Berita RTM and have a pleasant evening.